Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation D VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be trying out a team featuring Sneasler plus Indeedee. I have not featured Sneasler yet. This is my very first time using it on the channel, and it's a really interesting Pokemon. This team peaked at number 3 on the ladder and ultimately finished in the top 100 of the previous ranked season, and the idea is that Sneasler is just one of the fastest Pokemon in the format. With the Psychic Seed and Unburden combination, it can just outpace everything and deal large amounts of damage. Dire Claw is a really cool signature attack that has the chance of getting additional status conditions, and this is a Rock Terra set with Rock Slide as well, so you're able to deal a lot of damage and hit things like Tornadus for super effective damage. The team also has a lot of weather components to it, with Tornadus to enable Sunny Day for Chi Yu, as well as Rain Dance for Basculegion, so I am really excited to try it out. It's a hyper offense team generally and can deal massive amounts of damage very quickly. So, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, would really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's get into things. Breaking things down now, as always, rental, pace, and team creator are linked down in the description below. And question of the day, with us using Sneasler and Basculegion, I don't know what your favorite Hisuian Pokemon is down in the comment section below. Now, the first combo to talk about on this team, of course, is Sneasler. And like I mentioned, this team peaked at number 3 on the rank ladder and ultimately finished in the top 100 of the previous ranked season. I think it's a really fun, fast-paced team that utilizes just some of the strongest duos that you can have, and not a lot of people actually have a ton of experience playing against these duos. The first duo, of course, is Sneasler plus Indeedee. The general idea is that Indeedee sets up the Psychic terrain for Sneasler. Sneasler's Unburden activates with the Psychic Seed, and you're able to just outspeed so many things, practically everything if they don't have speed control on the opposing side, while also dealing massive amounts of damage thanks to a base 130 attack. Fighting and Poison in general is just pretty unique coverage, and it's really valuable into Pokemon in this format that are common. For example, Rillaboom's everywhere, Heatrans everywhere, you're able to hit both of those for super effective damage. The Indeedee is also just really nice for defensive support because you can go for Follow Me to further make sure that Sneasler just doesn't get one-shot by super effective attacks, and of course you can Helping Hand to boost Sneasler's damage output as well. One thing that I like about this Sneasler in particular is the Rock Slide plus Rock Terra combination. I feel like that's something I had not really seen on too many Sneaslers before, but it just does ridiculous amounts of damage. You think about common compositions in this format, and Tornadus teams are really common, so being able to, 1, go for a Terra to protect you from flying type attacks, and then 2, deal large amounts of damage is really, really sweet. With this amount of speed investment, by the way, you are outpacing max speed Landorus Therian and everything slower than that. But keep in mind, if you are used to using max speed Sneasler, this is a little bit different. I had one practice game where I went up against Tornadus, and I was expecting to be faster. They had set up Tailwind, I had the Unburden activated, and of course they ended up outpacing me. So that's something that you have to be careful about when using this Sneasler. You are, of course, going to be weak to flying type attacks, ground type attacks, and even post-Terra. Ground is still scary, so ground type Pokemon in particular can be really rough for Sneasler, so you're going to want to be careful about that. Spread moves can also be pretty tricky, but the main idea is that Indeedee Sneasler just allows you to put on a lot of pressure immediately. The other offensive cores revolve around Tornadus, and this Tornadus has double weather with Sunny Day and Rain Dance. So Sunny Day is mainly to enable Chi Yu, deal massive amounts of damage with their fire type attacks. This is a very standard choice spec set, timid, max speed with Fire Terra. The main thing to call out here is that you've got Snarl, which is really nice against Heatran, which otherwise can wall Chi Yu a decent amount. Choice spec Snarl is honestly no joke and really can quickly deal large amounts of damage while also reducing your opponent's damage output. So Torn Chi Yu is one lead with this team. Torn Basculegion, of course, is another lead, and the idea behind Basculegion is that, of course, you can set up the Rain Dance for it, further increasing your damage output of your water type attacks, and also, of course, activating Swift Swim, allowing Basculegion to just outpace so many Pokemon in the format. Now, as you can see, Basculegion here has 103 speed, so when you have that Rain Dance, you're outpacing, say, max speed Flutter Mane, which is really nice, and so as a result, you can invest a lot more in defense. And defense is nice because otherwise, like, Sucker Punch from things like Chien-Pao and Urshifu can be really scary, and it's just nice to, cover defensively a little bit more. The last Pokemon on the team is Amoonguss, and it's a really interesting set. This is actually a little bit more offensive, as you can see, with 108 special attack and Quiet Nature, and it's an Agua Berry set with Grass Knot, Spore, Sludge Bomb, and Rage Powder. So normally you're going to see Rage Powder, Spore, but you'll see Pollen Puff and Protect over those 2 offensive moves. The idea is that, 1, Grass Knot's really nice because it just allows you to deal more damage in general. Really valuable for Basculegion, which can, of course, sweep through teams with its water type attacks, but water Pokemon can be a nuisance for it, especially something like Gastrodon. So having Grass Knot for that coverage is really nice. And then Sludge Bomb just gives you some unique coverage into fairy types, and of course is really good into Rillaboom as well. Rillaboom is generally used as a counter into Amoonguss because you can just wall it immediately and completely just render it useless, but having Sludge Bomb means that you can actually deal meaningful damage and fish for those poisons as well. So general combos that I've gone with, I think like Entity Sneasler really effectively, Tornadus Chi Yu really effective, Tornadus Basculegion effective. The main thing about Torn Basculegion is, of course, Last Respects ends up being a little bit weaker, so you have to consider whether or not you think you can just sweep with Wave Crash in the early game, but those are, I think, some of the strongest leads that I've gone with. And for example, if I go Entity Sneasler, I'm looking for a way to close out the game, so you can go like Tornadus Chi Yu, Tornadus Basculegion, Chi Yu Basculegion. The main thing is just making sure you have enough offense to win the game, because if you go like Entity Sneasler Amoongus or Tornadus Entity Sneasler, right, it's like only Sneasler's really dealing damage, and that's why it's really important to make sure you bring multiple damage dealers into a battle. But yeah, the general idea is that this team just takes advantage of you trying to outpace your opponent and just dealing large amounts of damage before they can really get a chance to knock you out. In terms of weaknesses, I think the first thing to note is that the team doesn't have any flying resistances or immunities. The only way you get around it is with Rock Terror on Sneasler. So I had one game where I just didn't position super well against Tornadus. Like, I didn't have Sneasler out immediately, and a couple of Bleak Winds just really chipped away at my team. This team doesn't have that much bulk to work with, especially on Chi Yu and these Sneasler in particular. And so, like, yeah, you do have defensive EVs on Entity, Amoongus, and Tornadus, but the thing is, like, you really need to make sure your main damage dealers are able to deal enough damage to actually help you win the game. And so in that game, like, a couple of Bleak Winds just put my team into a pretty difficult position. I also think, for example, with this team, you're relying very heavily on Sneasler, Chi Yu, and Basculegion for offense. And so sometimes things can be awkward, right? Because you're often supporting those offensive options with a support Pokemon in Torn, in Amoongus, in Entity. And so where things can get tricky is if you, for example, can't do enough damage with your main attacker, and then your opponent can just retaliate back with a lot of damage. I think I've had games where that's scary. For example, if you go Torn Chi Yu, like a Heatran switch on turn 1 can be really scary. If you go Sneasler Entity, there are some Pokemon that can just wall this combo. For example, Poison Terras in general and Ghost Terras I've had a lot of trouble with while using Sneasler in particular, and something like Golden Go, for example, super good into Sneasler. Sneasler just can't hit it with Dire Claw or Klaus Combat. Rock Slide just does such minimal damage. So you have to think about that with this team, because you rely a lot on offense, right? But like each of these 3 Pokemon that are dealing damage can be walled by a significant number of Pokemon, and so a lot about that is putting yourself in positions where you can generally go for attacks safely without hoping to, land like one attack and then just get completely resisted and blown up in return. So that's something that you're going to have to keep in mind in particular. And I also think, like, you do have Amoongus answers with this team, right? Like, Amoongus itself can wall opposing Amoongus. Chi Yu can threaten Amoongus, but without Taunt on Tornadus, without any Grass Terrace or Safety Goggles, a single Spore can completely shut down the momentum of this team. And I had one game where my opponent let Dark Urshifu plus Amoongus. I had Entity plus Sneasler, and I just like forgot to go for Fairy Terror on Entity, so I went for Follow Me. They had Poison Terror on Urshifu, got a one-hit knockout onto Entity with Wicked Blow, and then Spored the Sneasler, and then the game just like was effectively over immediately, because this team does not have enough time generally for you to wake up with Pokemon, and so you're going to have to be very careful, I think, against Amoongus in particular. And obviously that relies generally on using a combo of like Tornadus, Chi Yu, Entity to hit it for super effective. One combo to deal with is like Dire Claw plus Psychic, for example. So yeah, that's just some food for thought. And then Basculegion, of course, is a little bit weaker in the early game because of Last Respects not getting powered up as much, and it is just consistently weak to electric and grass type attacks, and strong ghost type attacks are also a threat in this Pokemon. So yeah, that's it for the breakdown. Now let's get into the games. Okay, we've got Amoongus, Heatran, Urshifu, Flutter, Chien-Pao, and Gyarados here. Heatran is concerning. We could Snarl it, though. Sneasler is pretty interesting here. I think Gyarados is going to be the main concern with the Intimidates. Yeah, Gyarados, I think, objectively, is probably going to be the trickiest Pokemon to deal with. It has a pretty good matchup to most of our team, especially with that Intimidate. Could see my opponent leading Gyarados plus like Amoongus, Gyarados, Heatran. I'm thinking Sneasler, Entity in the early game. Right, I can go for like Follow Me, even potentially consider like Rock Terra, Rock Slide, or just start Dire Clawing. And then in the end game, I'm thinking Tornadus, Basculegion. I could just go full offense and go Chi Yu Basculegion as well. But I think Basculegion's really effective as a late game sweeper here, and I want Tornadus to enable it with Tailwind and Rain Dance. Bleak Wind Storm is also pretty decent damage in this matchup. I think we could have considered just leading Tornadus, but basically I want to conserve Basculegion for the end game. And my issue with Chi Yu here is being choice locked, right? I think like Indeedee Chi Yu is a possible lead. I could go Tornadus Chi Yu as well. But they're going to go with Gyarados and the Heatran. Okay. So obviously it doesn't feel great to eat and Intimidate, but we still pressure with a lot of damage here. I think Heatran may want to consider, for example, a Terra or a Protect on turn 1. Gyarados here could Thunder Wave, it could Taunt, it can Waterfall. So like, for example, I could still go for Helping Hand Close Combat onto Heatran. If we think Heatran's going to Protect, I also could go for like Rock Terra, Helping Hand Rock Slide. Follow Me protects us from taking too much damage from this. I personally think I want to just go for Dire Claw turn 1 and a Gyarados, and then Follow Me. I want to see if Heatran protects or considers a Terra here on turn 1. The alternative is just Helping Hand Close Combat Heatran. Honestly, that's kind of tempting as well. But I'm going to go for Follow Me Dire Claw turn 1. Okay, they did not end up protecting Heatran, which makes me feel like I can go for the Helping Hand play a little bit more confidently next turn. Dire Claw and a Gyarados. And we do get a status condition in the Paralysis. That's nice. More incentive to potentially go for, like, Terra Rock Slide. And we actually dodge Heat Wave there as well, so Sneasler is getting all the positive rolls right now. And they just go for Waterfall. Okay, cool. So you eat up Rocky Helmet damage as well. Perfect. Yeah, honestly, given that, I'm kind of tempted to just go for Close Combat and Helping Hand. I feel like they didn't really respect that option on turn 1. Okay, here's Helping Hand. And they don't protect Heatran. Perfect. And Close Combat gets a one-hit knockout. Sneasler is really off to a start here. The Heat Wave dodge was obviously fairly lucky, but of course we had the special defense boost, so I think we would have had well over 50% of our health. So they go for a Waterfall onto Sneasler, and we hang on with 4 HP. That was super close. Okay. And they're actually going to bring out Urshifu. And it's Dark Urshifu. Okay. That means Tornadus is going to be pretty well positioned. We'll probably want to consider going for a Terra with this. Part of me is thinking about, like, Rock Slide here and Helping Hand. Because if I were my opponent, I would probably consider protecting Urshifu, but Urshifu... Actually, no, I really don't think it's going to be Focus Sashed. I think the Sash is going to be on Qianpao. So, yeah, honestly, I'm down for a Helping Hand Rock Slide here. Mainly because I think Urshifu protects her Terras here. But no Terra so far. Okay. Yep, there's the Detect. Perfect. So we get Rock Slide. Decent chance of Paraflinch right now. If we connect, which we do. Almost just actually pick up the KO there. Gyarados indeed does have the berry. That would have been... I think if we get that knockout, we probably just win, because then I can just aggressively target down the Urshifu next turn. But we do get the Paraflinch. Oh my goodness. Okay. Gyarados normally isn't going to carry Protect very frequently, so I'm personally okay going for Rock Slide here. I mean, the alternative is to just go for the knockout onto Urshifu, like Helping Hand Close Combat it. It's a question of what Terra we think it's going to be. But honestly, I think Rock Slide here and just Follow Me is fine. Because then you'll eat up Rocky Helmet damage. We'll KO Gyarados. We have a flinch chance on Urshifu here as well. There's Rock Slide. Yep. KO's Gyarados. Cool. So we're up 4-2. Urshifu should get a knockout onto Indeedee here, though, unless I get a flinch. And there's Wicked Blow. Okay, cool. Lack of a Terra there is interesting, though, because it meant I could have gone for that Close Combat play. But Sneasler has put on an amazing show. Despite being intimidated, we got a Paralysis on a Gyarados, a flinch onto it, Close Combat to KO Heatran, and forced out a Protect from Urshifu. It doesn't really get much better than that. And their last one is going to be Qianpao. Okay, that makes sense. We bring out Tornadus. Now, with one more turn of Psychic Terrain, personally, I would expect my opponent to double Protect here. The question is whether or not I consider a Terra on this to survive, like, Ice Spinner, but then I become Ghost. Like, I think Urshifu is more or less forced to protect here this turn. So I'm personally thinking of clicking Close Combat into that slot. And then I think Tailwind. Yeah, if Urshifu doesn't protect, we would win the game with this. I guess I could defensively Terra here as well, which is what it looks like they're going for. Oh, but it's Chien-Pao. Okay, nice. Ghost? Yeah, that makes sense. So I think most reasonably you protect Urshifu here. Yep. And then I would think probably Ice Spinner onto the Tornadus slot. Okay, so Close Combat into the Protect. Yeah, and they go for Ice Skull Crash. Okay, that's fine. I could have gone for an attack, obviously, onto the Urshifu slot. Like, I guess Rock Slide would have been decent there. Or, sorry, onto the Chien-Pao slot. But Terrain disappears. But what this means now is I can just bring out my Basculegion. This was the setup we were going for, right? Bring out Basculegion. I can protect here to make sure that you can't Sucker Punch KO this. Go for Water Terra so that any Dark-type attacks don't KO us here. And then just Wave Crash into Urshifu. Yeah. So we'll get the KO onto Urshifu. I guess the main thing here is you could like double Sucker Punch the Basculegion slot, which would be pretty strong. And I think them conserving Chien-Pao's Terra was smart. Okay, so we protect here. Let's see where they target. Cool. Sucker Punch into Sneasler. Perfect. Excellent. We get Wave Crash here. So that'll knock out the Urshifu. Now it's a 2v1. Chien-Pao presumably has Focus Sash. We still have Tailwind up. We take our recoil. Oh. I thought that was Urshifu going for Sucker Punch, but it was actually Chien-Pao going for Sucker Punch onto this. And Urshifu was just trying to attack, presumably Wicked Blow. Okay. I think I could have lost to a double Sucker Punch here onto the Basculegion slot, but now I think we should be in pretty good shape. I can just go for Rock Slide here, as well as the Last Respects. Chien-Pao presumably protects here, but they actually just end up forfeiting. Okay. Yeah, the Basculegion here has a ton of defense. It's 28 HP EVs, 188 defense EVs, so... You know, even if they had double Sucker Punch, I figured I would survive, but then it would have been a lot closer because, like, then I'd have to potentially click Aqua Jet, for example, and then it becomes like a Sucker Punch mind game against the Chien-Pao. So we had a really early lead, but, you know, I think Tornadus just going down immediately made things a little bit trickier, but of course it was able to enable that Tailwind. I think I could have accelerated this battle at a couple of different points, like helping hand Close Combat onto the Heatran immediately and get that knockout onto Urshifu. I just thought Urshifu might have had a defensive Terra. I was worried about something like a Poison Terra coming out from that. So, but this matchup was actually pretty tricky because I think Gyarados in general has a really good matchup into all of our offensive options, and then Chien-Pao is also pretty scary, especially once the terrain disappears from Indeedee. But yeah. Okay, we've got Chien-Pao Dragonite, Rillaboom, Heatran, Urshifu, Flutter. Very solid core here. And my question is what I want to lead with. I could go with... Do I ever want to consider Trick Room here? I mean, they don't have Intimidate, so I actually think Indeedee plus Sneasler is actually really solid here, because what I could do is just, like, Rock Terra, Sneasler, Rock Slide throughout this battle. That seems decent here, honestly. Especially against Chien-Pao Dragonite. Like, I think Sneasler's coverage here is actually so good. The question is what I want to close out the game with, right? Chi Yu can blow things up with Overheat. It might just be Torn Basculegion again. Amoonguss here has Sludge Bomb and Grass Knot, which I don't think is, like, that valuable. Actually, it's decent here. Sludge Bomb's good into Rillaboom. The main thing is, I mean, I could use Amoonguss under Trick Room, which would be pretty cool. I just like Basculegion a lot as a late game sweeper. I think Torn is solid. Yeah, I'm going to go Torn Basculegion again. I think my fear with Chi Yu is that, like, late game priority against it is just really good. We don't have any bulk, and so once the Psychic Terrain stalled out from Indy, things get scary, but yeah, I'm really happy to just go with Sneasler here. I think this is where Rock Terror Rock Slide can be amazing if they just go, like, Chien-Pao Dragonite. Because turn 1, we can just go Follow Me, Rock Terror, Rock Slide, and I think there's not much they can do to stop that. And it is Chien-Pao Dragonite. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, let's go. Yeah, like, you can Terra Dragonite here. If you're not expecting the Rock Slide, this is just going to hurt so much. I guess my one fear here is probably... I'm actually thinking instead of going for Terra with this, I'm actually thinking go for a Terra with this. The reason for that is because I'm worried about Chien-Pao going for like a Crunch to KO this, and then Dragonite just goes for like Stomping Tantrum to KO this. Whereas if I defensively Terra Indeedee, I should always survive a turn 1 attack from the Chien-Pao. So I'm actually going to do that, yeah. Terra here, defensively, Follow Me, and Rock Slide. I guess the one thing I could lose to right now is Earthquake from Dragonite, but it doesn't look like they're going to go for a Terra here on turn 1, since Indeedee is slower than my opponent. But like I said, I just really didn't want to get hit by a Crunch, because Adamant max attack Crunch on Chien-Pao now is really standard. So you go for Follow Me. No Switch, no Terra. Nice. Sneasler double connects on Rock Slide. Okay. They did just go for Icicle Crash in the end, okay. So, Sneasler Terra there would have been fine. But it is Outrage! Nice. Okay, that also helps. I could just go for Follow Me Rock Slide again, right? My question is whether or not Helping Hand Rock Slide gets the KO on Dragonite, because that looked like multi-scale. What would you even... Because once you click Outrage, you can actually change your move right now, right? Since it didn't work. I just really don't want this to get, like, one-shot by a random attack. I'm just curious if Helping Hand Rock Slide can just get that KO. It's close. Yeah, I think it's better to play it safe here. We'll just Follow Me here. And Rock Slide. Dragonite actually switches. Okay, that's fine. Rillaboom, Flutter. Yeah. Oh, Helping Hand Dire Claw into that slot would have been so sick, but that's fine. Rillaboom comes out. Chien-Pao protects, yeah. It's fine. Follow Me. I'll go for Rock Slide. Decent damage onto Rillaboom, honestly. Now you obviously have Fake Out pressure, so I could pretty easily just protect Sneasler. Question is what I want to do with the Indeedee slot. Because I could switch it out and then back in for terrain control again, but I'm not sure that's necessary. An Icicle Crash onto that slot makes a lot of sense, so I could actually switch out into this right now. Or I could just give up Indeedee, essentially. Yeah, I would expect Fake Out here and then just like Icicle Crash here. So part of me is thinking about actually switching out. Okay, I'm down to switch and protect. This is a little bit risky because of course it means that they could potentially go for like a Wood Hammer onto that slot. Or a Crunch, for example. We're going to protect. Cool. Yep. Fake Out into that slot. Expecting an Ice-type attack into one of these two slots. Yeah. That's fine. Cool. Basculegion takes that pretty well. Main thing here is you could Sucker Punch me, but are you really going to click Sucker Punch? I actually wouldn't be surprised if like this protects. I mean, I personally want to consider pivoting back out into Indeedee right now. And then going for a Dire Claw onto Rillaboom. The question is whether or not we think this protects. Dire Claw into this is decently safe, though, is the main thing, I think. I could also just stay in here with Basculegion, honestly. And just go for Wave Crash. Because it's like, are you really going to click a Dark-type attack into this? Okay, I'm actually going to just, yeah, Dire Claw and Wave Crash here. Okay, they don't switch. We get Dire Claw, and with Chien-Pao's defense drop, we just get that knockout. Beautiful. So this is the logic, right? It's like Chien-Pao maybe targets Sneasler down, but then Basculegion KOs the Chien-Pao. We actually get a dodge there as well, so that, I think, just secures up the game. But definitely have had good RNG with Sneasler. But the whole idea was to trade Sneasler for Chien-Pao there, and I was like, okay, if the game is now 3-2 in my favor, and I have Indy with Psychic Terrain, I can stop the extreme speeds from the Dragonite. Tornadus just sets up a Tailwind, and we should be really well positioned. So the idea was to trade there, and then get a free switch into either Indy or Tornadus. And Urshifu's their last one. Dark Urshifu, okay. We know this is Outrage, like, should be Choice Banded here. Honestly, don't hate switching back out into Indy, set up Psychic Terrain. Although I don't think Dragonite's clicking anything other than Outrage. Maybe Stomping Tantrum at this point. But yeah, I want to switch into Indy here. And Protect is obviously weird against an Urshifu, but I think it works here because it's mainly to make sure Dragonite doesn't KO us. Yeah. Tornadus in the endgame is looking pretty good at this point, and we're looking to just set up Tailwind as well. But there's Psychic Terrain. Here's the Terra. If it's normal Terra Dragonite, we just close combat that next turn, but I think it would be Terra on the Urshifu. Poison Steel, maybe? Yeah, Poison. Steel wouldn't make that much sense against close combat. Okay. So Poison's pretty common. It's just a really good defensive Terra, right? It helps against the weaknesses to things like Fighting and Fairy. Okay, they Wicked Blow into the NDD slot, which is fine. There's the Rocky Helmet damage. Cool. Let me go for Aerial Ace. Okay, makes sense. So now you can just go for another Wicked Blow. I'm not even sure that KOs the NDD, quite frankly. Helping Hand Rock Slide's definitely not KOing this now that Chien-Pao is not on the field. Follow me. Now that Terrain is up, though, Basculegion can kind of just Wave Crash this, right? So I think going for Follow Me here and just Rock Slide is okay. There's Follow Me. You get Rock Slide. Ooh, okay, they've got Poison Jab. That's cool. Yep, so that'll get the knockout on Indy. And Aerial Ace presumably will also knock out the Sneasler, but that's fine because we're setting up for a Basculegion Tornadus endgame anyway, right? Okay. Yep, there's Aerial Ace. That will get the knockout. One of the interesting things about Dragonite is like what kind of moves do you want to run? So I could have gone for Helping Hand Rock Slide there instead. That's fine. Brown Tornadus. And Basculegion. So Tailwind on Tornadus here is super safe. Actually, instead of Tailwinding, it's better to just Rain Dance here, right? Rain Dance, and then we have a single target. Does it make a difference? Tailwind is actually better in case Urshifu is faster. Because we don't have speed investment here, right? Yeah. So Tailwind allows us to outpace them next turn. Tailwind, and then just Last Respects into Dragonite. Okay. I targeted Dragonite there, by the way, because of course, like, you could just protect the Urshifu. And if Urshifu protects there, we just win the game immediately. Yep, there's Wicked Blow. Okay. So now it's just a 1v1, but we've got Citrus Berry on this Tornadus, and our Tornadus is 252 HP, 108 defense EVs, so should be good here. I think the main question is fear of missing a Bleak Wind Storm. Right, because I could just Rain Dance into Bleak Wind. Actually, for that reason, then I probably should have considered Rain Dancing first. Yeah, I'm going to click Rain Dance here. Okay. Just because I know the Tornadus here is so defensive, I expect to survive Wicked Blow into Sucker Punch. They actually go for Poison Jab, okay. Yeah. Doesn't do half. Now we just Bleak Wind. I think the main thing is late game Tornadus is interesting because it just doesn't offer that much offensive pressure. And yeah, I mean, here I just wanted the 100% accurate Bleak Wind instead of risking. Because like 80% is pretty scary, right? I guess a Sucker Punch crit now could do it, but they're not going to go for Sucker Punch. I wonder if they even have it then. It could just be Poison Jab, Close Combat, the Wicked Blow, and Detect. Because do we ever see Sucker Punch come out? Do we ever see the other attacks? We saw Wicked Blow into Indie, then we saw Poison Jab come out into it. And then they clicked Wicked Blow into Basculegion, and then Poison Jab again. So, yeah, curious what other moves the Urshifu is carrying on that set, but wouldn't be shocked if it had something like a... If it didn't have Sucker Punch, because you would want Close Combat, right? So, yeah. Ooh, wow, okay. Hisuian Zoroark, as well as Basculegion and Regieleki. So, I kind of want to use offensive Amoonguss in this one, I think. Because we can Trick Room and Grass Knot and Sludge Bomb things, which is kind of sweet. That's one approach. The other approach is just going with, like, Indie Sneasler again. Chi Yu looks pretty strong here. Could go Tornadus Chi Yu in this one. I don't know. I'm honestly really interested in like Indie Sneasler again, but Amoonguss plus Chi Yu in the back. I could also use Basculegion under Trick Room with Last Respects. That's some food for thought. But yeah, I think this is interesting because basically when you see Sneasler Indie, you think, okay, my opponent's just going to go fast. So like Sneasler is going to be the fast part of it, but I can then use like Indie to set up Trick Room as I think Sneasler is going to feint, get a free switch it into Amoonguss. And Amoonguss doesn't look very offensive, but with this set, with Grass Knot and Sludge Bomb, like we can actually use Indie and Amoonguss to kind of chip away at my opponent's end. So it's going to be Tornadus plus Regieleki, which is fine by me, especially with the special defense boost. I think my main question then is, do I want to actually go for something like a Rock Terra here on Sneasler? It might be Zoroark here disguised, but even if it were, I think having the Rock Terra plus the special defense boost from Psychic Seed is very good. And it could be like a Tailwind into a Electro Web, right? So I'm thinking Rock Terra here, and I'm thinking we actually just click Trick Room immediately. I know that seems a little bit weird. Maybe it is a little bit weird. I don't necessarily need Trick Room here. Because then if you... Yeah, like, I could always just protect the next turn. Lecky scares me more than Tornadus, so... Okay, honestly, I'm thinking now just Rock Slide, Terra, and Psychic. KO Lecky, do a lot of damage into Tornadus. I don't know, if I were them, I would think Tailwind Electro Web is the play, which is why I was really thinking about just clicking Trick Room immediately with Indie. But we're gonna get the Sneasler out. Okay, they didn't bother Tailwinding, so that makes me think they're just clicking Bleak Wind Storm, which makes sense. Could have Helping Handed there. Physical Lecky with Wild Charge. Whoa, okay. So they take Rocky Helmet damage and recoil. It is going to be Bleak Wind, but we survive with both. Cool. And Psychic comes out. Okay, nice. That worked out pretty well, I would argue. The main thing here was having that defensive Terra with Sneasler to make sure we don't take that much damage, right? And if we had gotten a flinch onto Tornadus, like, would have been an amazing... Actually, I guess it doesn't move the needle that much because Indie didn't feint anyway, right? So, yeah. But That's probably one of my favorite things about this Sneasler set. One of the other Sneaslers that I tried out had like fake out Direct Claw Close Combat Protect, but it's just does so much damage. So they bring out Basculegion and Tornadus, right? So now I do expect a Tailwind play, right? With Tailwind, we're probably still outpacing with Sneasler. So initially I came into this game thinking I'd set up Trick Room. Now I think I can just use Amoonguss to protect the Sneasler and just keep spamming Rock Slide. Alternatively, I can try to set up Trick Room here. And get like Amoonguss or Chi Yu under Trick Room. Okay, I'm actually down for Rock Slide and Trick Room here. Yep, so Torn Rain Dances. Which is fine. We're going to connect on Rock Slide again. Oh! I was like, how do we do that much damage to a Basculegion with Rock Terror Rock Slide? But it was actually Zoroark coming out. Interesting. And so they go for Hyper Voice. Okay. That's fine. You're going to bring out Basculegion right now. To which I can bring out Amoonguss. Okay. I think my main question is, does the last respects from Basculegion KO our Amoonguss? This Amoonguss is not of a plus defense nature. If I were my opponent, what would I do here? I'd protect Zoroark and just try to like last respects into Amoonguss. I wonder if it's ever worth it to actually switch into Chi Yu here. Because like I'm not really stalling out the rain at this point. But I think if I switch into Chi Yu and then they target this, it's just game over for me. So I think it's better to just Rock Slide and go for Spore onto Basculegion. Okay, so here's the Terra from their end. Grass Terra would be really interesting on Basculegion, honestly. But it's just water, which is fine. Doesn't really move the needle much here. Just means that Chi Yu doesn't hit you for super effective. Okay, they go for a Helping Hand. That's really cool. But they forgot about terrain. Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, Rock Slide Spore was always going to be a pretty safe play, but that just ensures it. We had Psychic Terrain, plus there was the threat of Rage Powder. I think you have to go for Helping Hand last respects through to try to KO Amoonguss. Yeah, so Basculegion now falls asleep. And, like, that Terra actually just works against my opponent, because now I can just close combat, but it is easy to forget about terrain sometimes. I think that's a mistake that I've made plenty of times, where in previous generations, especially like in Sun and Moon, the terrains were so pronounced in the game, whereas now it's like barely on the field. It's super subtle. So can definitely see what my opponent was going for. They wanted to just go for Water Terra. I'm not even sure you need the Water Terra, honestly, but the idea is to just get a one-hit knockout onto Sneasler, right? Which totally makes sense. But I think Amoonguss is the bigger threat in that position, because if I put your Basculegion to sleep, then, yeah, then there's really not too much you can do from that position. Because then, like, Chi Yu comes out, and I can just go for, like, a Dark Pulse and then Spore into Zoroark, for example. But, yeah, Sneasler with that Rock Tower and Rock Slide just did so much damage. Wow. An opposing Sneasler Indie, but there's Ceruledge, Flutter, Thundurus, and I already said Sneasler, the Ursaluna, huh? Can't say I have any experience in the Indie Sneasler mirror. Don't know what Terra they're going to be. Oh, this is so fascinating, because I'm like, I want to go Trick Room, but then they have Ursaluna as well. Like, this is a really weird one. I would like to go with Chi Yu normally, but they have Ceruledge. Tornadus gives me speed control. I'm thinking Torn Chi Yu here. Sneasler. Do I need my own Indie is the question? Because I think it's really likely they bring out their Indie. Because I actually really want a Mungus in this matchup. Okay, I'm going to try this out. The opposing team is just very unorthodox, right? Like, one NDD Sneasler as a duo, but then they also have Scarlet, which I haven't seen at all in Regulation D, and then they also have Thunderous plus, like, Ursaluna. I think, generally, Ursaluna you would expect to see on, like, the Cresselia, Iron Hands, Heatran, Fluttermane, and Mungus comps. And what my opponent has is just very different, so I'm also curious if this is the standard Flame Orb Ursaluna set or if it's something different. I think something like Swords Dance Ursaluna plus Indeedee could be really scary. But against that, I would just probably Sunny Day, Fire Terra, Heat Wave. Sneasler Thunderous, though. Huh. So one of the questions is, do we think they're going to carry Fake Out here? Because, like, Fake Out's counterintuitive when you have Indeedee on the team, but it exists specifically for situations like this. And you can also still Fake Out non-grounded Pokemon like Tornadus, for example. So I could just go for Sunny Day and Heat Wave. I could Tailwind Heat Wave. Thunderous isn't a major threat to Chi Yu. They might Fake Out, like double up onto Torn, but that wouldn't really be too much of a problem. I could also expect them to switch into Scarlet right now. I think I'm most down for Tailwind and Heat Wave here, but I guess they could just switch into Indeedee and Close Combat Chi Yu. Oh, it's the Mirror Herb set. Wait, this is just going to wreck me. I had seen the strategy once before. So the idea is that Sneasler is Mirror Herb, so it copies the boost and then Unburden activates as well. Yeah, I think I'm done for. I'm getting cooked here. That's so sick. I honestly didn't even think about that because I just like I've seen the strategy before, but I haven't really run into it. Tornadus at least gets Tailwind up. But yeah, they've got Rock Slide. Oh, goodbye, Chi Yu. How could I have actually stopped that? The counterplay would have been switching in my own Indeedee, which I didn't even bring in this battle, but I would have needed to bring Indeedee just to set up the Psychic terrain to block the Swagger. Or, yeah, that's actually the only solution around that strategy. That's so cool. I honestly think the game is just over from here, but let's try to see how we can still win. So we know they have Swagger. We know Unburden activated. I've set up Tailwind. My problem is... Oh, I also could have just clicked Bleak Wind on turn 1, right? That also would have worked just for damage. One approach is to bring out a Mungus right now, but I think the odds of Thunderous having Taunt are super high. If I get taunted and Rock Slided, I think the game's just over. So I kind of feel like I need to go into my own Sneasler. I think if we end up being faster with our Sneasler, I can go for Bleak Wind and just Rock Slide here and hope for a flinch. But the Sneasler's admin 140 speed, so I wouldn't be surprised if their Sneasler just outpaces us. So, yeah, I just didn't really think about the Thunderous Sneasler strategy. It's really effective. The solution here would have been Indeedee plus Sneasler. The main thing is I think I also Tunnel Vision because in Team Preview, of course, I saw Sneasler plus Indeedee, and I'm sure that's part of the design of the team, right? You bait your opponent into thinking, hey, I am going to have the Psychic Seed. So that's a really cool design. But I'm just going to go Rock Slide, Bleak Wind, hope to outspeed with my Sneasler, get a flinch on them, and then go from there. But they also have Acrobatics, so yeah, there's really no shot here. I guess I could have protected. I could have protected with Sneasler and gone for Bleak Wind. That's so cool. Do we even connect? Okay, we do hit the Sneasler at least. But it wasn't even enough for a KO, yeah. Like, if I were faster there, maybe there was a small chance, right? We get the flinch there, and then Bleak Wind gets the knockout. But the reality is this game was just effectively lost after turn 1. So if I were to replay this game, what would I do? I think one lead to consider is Indeedee Chi Yu. Because with Indeedee, we block the Swagger immediately. And we can just go for something like a Follow Me into a Heat Wave, for example. But yeah, like... This is what really smart team building can do. Because I was baited into thinking that it was going to be a... Psychic Seed Sneasler, especially with the Indeedee on their team, but the Swagger Mirror Up strategy I didn't even really think about, and my opponent executed it perfectly. But, you know, when you have losses like this, you kind of have to just reflect and be like, okay, I totally got crushed. Where can I have improved? And the answer is, I ran into a strategy in best of 1, I think is really strong close team sheet, because once again, like, would just normally associate the Indeedee and Sneasler combo a little bit more. But I think as soon as I saw Thundurus and Sneasler, I should have had some like alarm bells going off and been like, hey, yeah, there's a very good chance this is actually the Swagger set. And as soon as like turn 1 started playing, I was like, okay, now I see what's coming my way, but I haven't actually played against it before, so a loss like this is valuable, because now if I run into Sneasler Thundurus again, I'll have a little bit better sense of what to expect from it. But yeah, the adjustment is bringing Entity to set up Psychic Terrain, because that just blocks the Swagger from going up onto our side unless you Swagger Tornadus. So Entity plus Chi Yu I think is really effective. I think we can actually consider a Trick Room route in that game. But yeah, that was really cool and great execution. And ultimately us having a slower Sneasler in the Sneasler matchup also made things trickier, right? Because they had Unburden activated, we had Tailwind up, but we just got one-shot by Acrobatic. So I also should have considered... Yeah, I didn't even consider a Terra there. I guess I didn't consider a Terra because I was worried like their Sneasler was just going to Rock Slide us anyway and that it would be wasted. But I also just didn't really think about the option of Acrobatics because the last 2 Sneaslers I had used had Fake Out, Close Combat, Dire Claw, Rock Slide, Protect. So... yeah, a Rock Terra on Sneasler there actually could have potentially given us a big opportunity in coming back into the game. Because it would have allowed us to survive Acrobatics, done more damage into Thundurus. I still needed a lot to go right, but at least I would have had a better shot. The problem is I didn't even bring my own Entity. But I guess at that point, how much does that really matter? So yeah, after turn 1, I think it was going to be really difficult. I needed to Rock Terra Sneasler, but the reality is in this matchup, I need to just bring different Pokemon. And... Entity, I guess, really needs to come out into the matchup specifically because of the Thundurus Sneasler combo. Okay, Flutter, Chi Yu, Urshifu, Farigiraf, Goldengo, Rillaboom. Goldengo is really scary for Sneasler, in my opinion. Chi Yu is good, but I think a Rillaboom Farigiraf lead here is definitely possible. You know what I like, though? I think we go like Chi... This is an interesting combo. Chi Yu Sneasler, because it gives me the opportunity to pivot into Entity for either of those slots, which I think is really neat. The question is, what do I actually go with as the 4th? None of these feel that great. I mean, like, Torn makes the most sense, I guess, because I could Tailwind with it. Maybe it's Basculegion just to get one really powerful, like, Last Respects off in the end game. You know what? I'm going to go with Torn, and the idea is, like, I can see a world in which turn 1 I pivot, like, Chi Yu out into Entity, and then go play with Entity Sneasler in the early game, then have Torn set up Heatwave and Tailwind for Chi Yu in the end game. I do think, like, team preview is pretty difficult with this team, mainly because, like, I often end up bringing like a 4th that just like doesn't contribute very much value, right? And you kind of split it into pieces, right? Like Entity and Amoonguss really good paired together. Entity Sneasler obviously really good. Chi Yu plus Torn, Basculegion plus Torn. But what gets weird is once you start separating the pieces. But my opponent is going to go with Rillaboom and the Farigiraf, which is fine. So my idea here was to switch in Entity on turn 1 to set up terrain. The question is whether or not we think Farigiraf goes for a defensive Terra here. Maybe I needed a Amoonguss then, because it would have been good under Trick Room. Basically, the play I want to make is Dark Pulse Farigiraf turn 1 and then switch into Entity. It depends on who we think is going to Terra here. I think the other approach I could have taken was Fire Terra Heatwave. I'm just really scared about Trick Room going up given what I brought in this game, and I have Tornadus, which deals with Rillaboom pretty effectively, as well as the Sneasler. Okay, perfect. They actually go for Fake Out, and they don't Terra Farigiraf. So, this is Choice Specs, Dark Pulse, and that's a one-hit KO. Beautiful. That was the play I was hoping would happen on turn 1, but I think there are a lot of players there that would not bother clicking Fake Out on turn 1, but this is why I wanted Entity in the back rather than leading it. Okay, so they bring out Flutter Mane, which is fine. I think we can get to a point now where... Okay, first let's see if it's speed. Either way, though, I think Sneasler can just Terra. And special attack. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Sneasler is in a really good spot right now. I guess Rillaboom could consider switching out. I personally want to go for Dark Pulse onto Flutter Mane and Helping Hand. And try to just KO that. I think Follow Me here is also acceptable because maybe there's a world in which they just go for Fairy Terra and then just try to Moonblast Chi Yu. But if Chi Yu survives the turn and Flutter doesn't protect and we KO and we're up, I think we just kind of win the game off that. So Rilla switches out into their own Chi Yu, which is fine. Yeah, late game Sneasler now looks like it's going to win. Okay. Alright, there's the Terra. Yeah, that's fine. If you go for a Fairy Terra, then Sneasler can just go for Dire Claw to KO you easily. Yeah. So I think this play made the most sense for my opponent's end, but I'm still fine with the way I played it. Because it's all about enabling my Sneasler at this point in the battle, I would argue. Especially with that Rock Terra. Oh, interesting. Wait, their Flutter Mane is so slow. Whoa. They're actually slower than Chi Yu. Interesting. I didn't expect that. That is very intriguing. Wonder if it's ever specs Chi Yu on their end. But I think a Torn Sneasler endgame is fine, especially with the special defense boost, because I can just like Tailwind, Rock Terra, Rock Slide. Yeah, I'm happy to Helping Hand Dark Pulse the Chi Yu slot now, because Flutter might protect. And Flutter's also in KO range from my attacks. Beautiful. Good, good. Okay. There's Dark Pulse. Great chip damage. And they actually go for a Dark Pulse of their own, which is totally fine. Perfect. So with this, I get a free switch into Sneasler, which now enables the Psychic Seed. Oh, it's Leftovers Chi Yu. That's really interesting. Leftovers, I wouldn't be surprised then if they were Leftovers Nasty Plot, given that they've got like Rillaboom on their team, because then you have like Grassy Terrain plus Leftovers recovery and you heal back pretty consistently, but it might just be triple attack Chi Yu. Either way though, we get our Sneasler in, which is obviously very good. 2 turns of Psychic Terrain. I'm going to Rock Terra here to survive a Fire type attack. I think switching to Tornadus here to pivot for a potential like Tailwind is pretty... I mean, alternatively, we know my Chi Yu is faster, right? It's a question of whether or not Dark Pulse KOs Flutter Mane without the Helping Hand, but basically like Dire Claw into this slot I think is really safe. So, yeah, I don't mind pivoting out into Torn, Terra, defensively, and then go for Dire Claw. It's tempting to go for Rock Slide plus Dark Pulse, but my fear of that is that Rock Slide is 90% accurate, so it's only 81% chance to hit both Pokemon, and I don't want to really leave this to accuracy right now. Flutter switches, which is fine. I think one play I could have considered was doubling up onto that slot, because now my question is whether or not I actually get this knockout. We might end up in a position where I actually do end up clicking Rock Slide. We'll see. But I would expect a Fire type attack into Sneasler this turn, right? If Dire Claw just gets the one-hit KO onto Rillaboom, I think that's effectively game over, because then you don't have Fake Out Pressure, so then it's a very safe like Tailwind into an attack. Curious if Chi Yu protects here. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I think Sneasler is awesome in this format. It has really good coverage into a lot of Pokemon. So there's Dire Claw. Does not get the knockout. Do we get a status condition? It is going to be the Sleep, which is the best condition you can really ask for. And that should just seal up the game. I'm happy to just close combat Chi Yu now and Rain Dance. Because by Rain Dancing, then Bleak Wind becomes 100% accurate next turn. So, Rain Dance, close combat. I think we really didn't need any status conditions on Rillaboom here, but the Sleep just kind of ensures the game immediately. At this point, Chi Yu kind of has to switch out. They're not going to switch. So, close combat KOs the Chi Yu. We set up Rain Dance, and then the next turn we just Dire Claw into Flutter Mane, and then Bleak Wind into Rillaboom. Cool. But I do think turn 1 of this battle was obviously huge. Like, I got the best trade I could ask for, a free knockout onto Farigiraf, and I didn't take any damage, right? Like, Rillaboom there could have pressured with something like a ground-type attack or a U-turn, for example. But now you bring out Flutter, and I can just go for the Dire Claw. I think the main thing in this game was whether or not I should have risked the Rock Slide Dark Pulse play. I just, like, don't want to leave anything to accuracy if I don't have to, right? And the thing is, because we had baited out the Protect from Flutter previously, I felt like we were in really good shape there. So, yeah, this should just be a guaranteed win. You maybe Protect Flutter, but then Bleak Wind just KOs Rillaboom, and then I just Dire Claw the Flutter again. Cool. And that's one of the cool things about poison coverage, being able to cover for those fairy types and hit them for super effective. Okay, there's Bleak Wind. Yep. And so that's the strength of Chi Yu, right? Being able to blow things up and get these big one-hit knockouts is a really big deal with this Pokemon. Okay, we just Bleak Wind again. Dire Claw again. And there's Dire Claw, super effective, and that'll get a knockout. I'm curious how this game would have played out without the sleep onto Rillaboom, but that's one of the fun things about Dire Claw, right? Like, I normally just use it for damage, but the secondary effects of coming from it can be really valuable, and it can turn like a neutral position into just like a favorable or even like a winning position immediately. So that's one of the main strengths of that move, in addition to it just being a very strong poison type attack. But sleep, obviously, very, very good status condition in VGC, and to be able to get a sleep on a switch in like that kind of just can win a game immediately, right? Because it just renders a slot completely useless, and they have to spend at least a turn burning the sleep as well. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much as always for joining me. I really did not expect to lead Indeedee and Sneasler as much as I did throughout the course of this episode, but I felt like it was just a really strong duo, and ultimately I was really pleased to see just how strong Sneasler can be offensively. I feel like it was able to kind of poke holes through my opponent's team in the early game and just deal massive amounts of damage across the board. So hopefully you all have some fun with this team and try out Sneasler, and it's a Pokemon that I think has a lot of potential. Eager to see how else people use it. And yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.